I discovered that my parents have been lying to me about my food allergies for my entire life. After going no contact with them, my mom tried to Unalive herself. Since I, 19 female, was a little girl, my parents, 50, drilled it into me that I was severely allergic to both milk and chocolate. The story they told me was that on my first Halloween, I had a terrible reaction, hives, and trouble breathing after my mom gave me a piece of milk chocolate. They rushed me to the hospital, where doctors supposedly diagnosed me with both milk and chocolate allergies. From that point on, chocolate and anything containing cow's milk were strictly off limits. This summer, one of my college friends from out of state invited me to stay with her for a few weeks. Since my godmother, also my aunt, lived nearby, I figured it was the perfect chance to visit her too, as I hadn't seen her since I was very young. She was thrilled to see me, and we spent a wonderful day hiking, catching up, and reminiscing. At lunch, she pulled out some snacks, including granola bars with chocolate. I declined, mentioning my chocolate allergy, which left her staring at me in total disbelief. My aunt told me, flat out, that I'd never been allergic to chocolate. She said my mother had made it up as part of a wild attempt to sue the daycare I attended back then. Apparently, my mom had this strange grudge against the daycare owner. She believed the owner was flirting with my dad and was trying to get the daycare shut down. According to my aunt, my mom created the whole story about my allergy to set up a situation where I'd be fed chocolate, hoping I'd have a reaction and give her grounds for a lawsuit. When that plan failed, my mom supposedly doubled down by claiming I was also allergic to milk. My aunt confronted her back then, but my mom cut her out, and they've barely spoken since. It was all so hard to believe. I desperately wanted to think my mom wasn't lying. But when we got back to my aunt's house, I took a small bite of the granola bar with chocolate in it. And nothing happened. No hives, no reaction, absolutely nothing. I was so stunned and upset that I decided to call my dad to get some answers. I wasn't ready for the bizarre conversation that followed. Here's how it went. Me, Dad, did you know I'm not actually allergic to chocolate or milk? You and Mom told me I was, but I just ate some and nothing happened. Dad, that's ridiculous. You've always had a reaction to chocolate. Why would we make that up? Me, I'm not accusing you of lying. I just wanted to know if you were aware I didn't have an allergy. Have I ever had any actual allergy tests? Dad, I'd need to ask your mother. I don't appreciate you calling us liars. Me, Dad, I'm not saying that anyone lied. I'm just trying to understand if I can safely eat chocolate now. Then, my mom jumped into the conversation. Apparently, she'd been listening on speaker. Mom, honey, don't you remember how you had hives at your 10th birthday? You had a Tootsie Pop from your friend, and you were allergic to the chocolate. Me, Mom, I didn't even have a 10th birthday party. I was away at summer camp. I just wanted to know if I ever got an allergy test because I had chocolate and nothing happened. I just want to know if I'm still allergic or not. Mom, you don't need to know if you had a test. You can't eat chocolate because we say you can't eat chocolate. And how dare you accuse us of never giving you a birthday party? You've always been ungrateful, and now you don't even remember the party we gave you. Me, Mom, I know for a fact I was at camp for my 10th birthday. Why are you trying to make me believe something that didn't happen? At that point, my mom started screaming at me, loud enough that I couldn't even make out what she was saying. I finally hung up, put my phone on silent, and watched as she proceeded to call me over 40 times in a row. My aunt, who had overheard the whole thing, was horrified. She hugged me and explained that this kind of behavior was exactly why she'd cut off contact with my mom years ago. Apparently, my mom had always had a tendency to lie and then manipulate others to believe her version of events. Now, I'm just left feeling unsettled, almost as if I don't even recognize my parents anymore. Their behavior creeps me out, and I'm genuinely questioning if I even want them in my life at this point. It feels like any attempt to be honest with them just turns into them trying to gaslight me. Am I wrong for wanting to cut ties with them? It's been a wild ride since I posted my last update, but I felt like I had to share what's been happening because my mom has truly taken things to a whole new level. It's like she bought a one-way ticket straight to crazy town, and I'm honestly at my wit's end. Here's a quick summary of everything I've discovered since that last post. I am not allergic to chocolate. In fact, Chocolate is amazing, and now that I've tried it, I can't get enough of the chocolate fountain at Golden Corral. I am not allergic to milk. It turns out I'm only mildly lactose intolerant. I can drink Lactaid with no issues at all. My mom always told me I was allergic to a protein in milk, which simply isn't true. My allergy test came back negative for everything. The only things I'm allergic to are pollen and some types of animal dander. My mom is not well. After discovering the truth, I made the decision to cut off contact with my parents, except for occasional emails. But that didn't go over well. My mom started calling me nonstop, over 1,000 times in the first week alone. I had to get a new phone just to escape it. To put this in perspective, she used to call maybe 2 or 3 times a week. This was a whole new level of disturbing. Eventually, I just stopped using the old phone altogether and let it die so I wouldn't have to deal with the constant calls. My mom knew where I lived on campus, so I requested a transfer to one of the more private dorm buildings to keep my new location under wraps. I told only my close college friends about the move and hoped that would be the end of it. For a while it was. Things seemed fine for a few weeks, until I got a call from one of the adjunct professors asking if I could tutor a new student. I'm on the school's master tutor list, so anyone can call me for help. I agreed to meet the student in the library, grabbed my books, and headed over. But when I arrived, the new student waiting for me was my mom. She had actually enrolled in classes at my college just to get close to me again. I was so stunned that I froze on the spot. The only thing I could think of was to get out of there, so I tried to slip out of the library, but she followed me, refusing to leave me alone. I eventually managed to lose her by ducking into one of the fraternity apartments, but ever since then, she's been practically stalking me around campus. I tried to report her to the college, but the campus police told me that, since she hadn't made any threats, they couldn't do anything. When I reported it to the local police, they gave me the same response. She hasn't left any voicemails or texts that I can use to prove her behavior, so I have no hard evidence of what she's been doing. My resident advisor, RA, did get my mom banned from my dorm building. Technically, only upperclassmen are allowed there, and she's enrolled as a freshman. But other than that, I'm running out of options to keep her away. And the latest? My mom posted on Facebook that she's registered for some of the same classes I need for my major next semester. She even posted her class schedule, showing we're in at least one of the same classes. She claims she never did anything to hurt me and insists I'm just lying about the whole chocolate and milk allergy story. My aunt had to go overseas for work, so I feel like I'm dealing with this alone. My dad has basically abandoned the situation. He's moved out of their house, and I haven't been able to reach him for help either. Does anyone have any advice for dealing with this? I feel so stuck and honestly a little scared about what she might try next. At the meeting, the administrator listened carefully to both of our stories, and it didn't take long before he caught my mom in yet another lie. She tried to keep a straight face, putting on her best poker face, and claimed she hadn't reached out to me in months. She denied calling me repeatedly, denied that she'd attempted to get tutoring from me, denied every single thing she'd done. She even tried to paint herself as the victim, saying I was just a disrespectful daughter who despised her mom for no reason. But I was prepared. I calmly pulled out my iPhone and showed the administrator my call log, displaying the record of her calls, over 1,000 of them, all back to back. The administrator was shocked to see the quadruple digits. When my mom saw this, she desperately tried to deny that it was her number, but the administrator quickly looked it up in the student database, and it matched her contact information exactly. My mom tried to backtrack, but it was already too late. The administrator laid down the rules clearly. He made us sign a contract stating that we were not to contact each other for the rest of the school year. Any violation would mean suspension from classes. My mom was also required to change her class schedule so that we wouldn't be in any of the same courses. He warned her that if she attempted to get around the agreement in any way, even by accident, she could lose access to certain campus buildings if I happened to be inside. Our student IDs are connected to an RFID system, and we have to swipe them to enter most buildings, so this was a serious threat. When the meeting ended, I felt such a huge sense of relief. For the first time in weeks, I felt free. I finally had a way to protect myself from her constant harassment. A few nights later, though, I got a voicemail from my dad. He said my mom had tried to overdose on sleeping pills, and was being taken to the hospital. I thought maybe he was making it up or exaggerating to guilt me, so I called the hospital myself. They transferred me to my dad, who was waiting there. He didn't waste any time laying into me. He called me all kinds of names, saying I was selfish and heartless. He blamed me for everything, saying if I didn't want my mom to die, I shouldn't have made her life miserable. My mom is an incredibly sharp and resourceful person. If she truly wanted to end her life, I have no doubt she would have succeeded. She has this almost uncanny ability to recall statistics at a moment's notice, and I've even overheard her mention that firearms are involved in most successful suicides. She's fully aware of what it takes to make a suicide attempt serious, and she's clever enough to create a situation that's dramatic, but not actually life-threatening. What really tells me that this was all part of her plan is how she prepared everything for maximum impact. She made sure to add me to her approved visitor list, and she signed off on all the necessary paperwork so that the hospital staff could freely share her medical details with me without violating HIPAA. She knew I'd call to check if her hospitalization was real, and she set it up so that I'd get every piece of information I needed to feel the guilt. This way, I'd be fully informed and burdened with the weight of her attempt, just as she intended. Now, here I am at Thanksgiving break, completely unsure of what to feel or do. I thought baking a pumpkin pie might take my mind off everything, but somehow nothing tastes right. Every bite feels like ashes in my mouth. Now on to the next story, story 2. An asshole coworker sent my husband a spicy text during a work event. Now he's threatening leaving me. This week, there was an after-work gathering to say goodbye to a coworker who had accepted a new job. The plan was to have some light food and drinks. I don't drink, just so you know, and I usually don't go into too many details with my husband about these events since he doesn't usually ask much and doesn't mind me going out for these occasional meetups, which usually wrap up by early evening around 6 or 7 p.m. Here's how our text exchange went to give a better sense of what happened. 6 p.m. Husband, you have that thing tonight, right? Need dinner after? Me. Should be out of there by 8 and fed, so no worries about dinner. Times are estimates. Husband, okay? I didn't check my phone until later, while on the train home around 11 p.m., so I missed several of his texts in between. 9:30 p.m. Husband, hey baby, everything okay? What's your status? 10:05 p.m. Husband, all good? 10:30 p.m. Husband, hey, give me a ping, getting worried. 10:33 p.m. from my phone, sent by a coworker, hey buddy, chill the f*** out. She's in really good hands, I can assure you, winky face. Here's what happened with that last text. I'd left my phone at the table, and one of my coworkers who had had too much to drink decided to pick it up and send that message without my knowledge. I'd left my phone unlocked, and he took it upon himself to mess with it. Since he cleared the notifications, I had no idea about my husband's messages until I got back to my phone. When I finally saw everything on the train home, I immediately texted my husband. 11:05 p.m. me. Babe, sorry, that was not me. See you when I get home. I didn't get a reply from him. When I got home, I found him already in bed. I leaned down to kiss his cheek, but he didn't kiss back. I asked him if something was wrong, and he just said he didn't want to talk because he was afraid he'd say something he'd regret. The next day, he totally ghosted me, refusing to engage at all. Finally, tonight, he approached me. He told me he felt seriously disrespected by what happened and was frustrated by my lack of response that night. He explained that he hadn't been trying to keep tabs on me, but was just making sure I was okay, especially since I'd told him I'd likely be home earlier. I apologized over and over, trying to smooth things over, but he wasn't too receptive. He said he's not sure what to believe. He's always had complete trust in me, but feels that something suspicious must have been going on for my coworker to take my phone and feel comfortable enough to send such a text. Our discussion kept going back and forth with little progress. Eventually, he delivered an ultimatum. He said he doesn't know what to think, but that if there's any chance of him moving past this, I'd have to completely avoid this coworker. His words were, if there's a work meeting, I want you to notify HR there's a personal conflict. He then added, if you can't meet these demands, you can look for another job or a new husband, your choice. It all happened so quickly. I know he's overreacting, but I also understand why he's upset. I already confronted the coworker, telling him off and warning him that if he touches anything of mine again, I'll go to the police. But my husband's demands feel extreme, and I'm not sure how to handle this. I'm wondering if I should let things cool down and see if he relaxes, if I should give in to his demands, or if there's some other way to resolve this. I'm pretty sure he thinks something happened that night, and I get that from his perspective it looks bad. But if he could just believe me, I think he could move past this. On Wednesday morning, I spoke with my boss right away to explain what had happened the night before. Although he wasn't at the bar, he knew about the event. Later in the morning, he had a conversation with the coworker who'd caused all the trouble, but I didn't hear anything else about it during the workday. I also spoke to a friend at work about what had gone down. She was there at the bar and could vouch for the fact that I was just there for the event. Without me even asking, she decided to take matters into her own hands. She got the problematic coworker onto a conference call and called my husband to make the coworker apologize for his actions. I had no idea this call was happening, and I didn't find out about it until later that evening when I got home. When I arrived, my husband gave me a big hug and immediately told me about the call. He mentioned that by the time the day was over, he'd already figured out it was just a stupid prank by a drunk coworker. He said that the idea of me cheating and someone sending that text was so absurd that it didn't make sense in the slightest. The call had helped, but he made it clear that he really laid into the coworker, telling him how much chaos he'd caused. He also told him directly to stay as far away from his wife as professionally possible, or he'd make sure the guy's career took a hit. We spent hours talking through everything, and he reinforced some expectations for the future. Nothing too complicated, just simple things like giving each other a heads up if we're going to be late. He'll do the same, making sure I'm password protecting my phone, and being generally more aware of my surroundings and the people I'm around. I'd say we're about 95% back to normal now. This week has been a real shock, and I think we're both feeling a bit drained from all the drama. We decided to spend the whole weekend together, just the two of us, to unwind and reconnect. I'm back at work now, and there's no conflict. My husband is here as well, but the coworker hasn't directly apologized to me yet. Honestly, I'm not in a hurry to have any contact with him moving forward. I just want things to get back to normal. Sorry I didn't engage more in the original thread. It turned into a bit of a mess with people dissecting my alibi. I do get why some people thought it looked suspicious that I didn't realize the time or check my phone for several hours, but the truth is I had a rough idea of the time. I did check my phone during the evening, but I didn't think to check in because I kept feeling like I was always on my way out of the bar. At one point, I left my phone on the table while I moved to another table to talk to a few coworkers and say my goodbyes. I got distracted, and by the time I remembered my phone, the text had already been sent. I know I should have checked in at 8 p.m., but it honestly slipped my mind in the moment. Thanks to everyone who shared their thoughts about not needing to be glued to your phone all the time. I'm pretty notorious for putting my phone in my purse and missing a lot of calls, so I appreciate the understanding. Lastly, I think the next time we have an after-work gathering, I'll invite my husband. He's really social and talkative, and I'm sure he'll get along with everyone without any issues.